Dear Diary, I'm going fucking insane. Now I know that to the uninitiated, which means pretty much everyone other than myself and my siblings, that sounds a little, excessive. That's because it is. But I am. I can feel it happening. I am not happy. I was, and now I'm not. And more than not being happy, I'm also angry because I was never taught how to deal with sadness. And I know what you're thinking right now is, well, neither was I. It's just a thing you pick up. And the answer is, well, yes. But you will have seen your parents being sad, or your guardians, or whoever raised you. You will have seen them being sad. And you would have gone to them when you were sad, the first or fifth or 19th or 20th or 100th time you were sad, you would go to them and they would comfort you. And they would teach you to deal with sadness. I have no frame for that because whenever I try to tell, there have been times in my life, and I don't want to be saying that I've never had it, because there have been times in my life when I've gone to my mother, like at the end of my tether, let me tell you, and I've unloaded. We've had an extreme heart of types, and then she would comfort me afterwards. But it was really, those heart-to-hearts could go one of two ways, and they often went the second. The first would be that I would unload to her. She'd go, "Oh, baby, darling," and then comfort me. And the other way would be she would just be like, "Well, you think your life is so bad? Well, this is what I've got going on in mine." And it's like, okay, cool, great, I'm sorry that's happening to you, but that's not... Mum, mother, please. And I think the other one I mentioned was, you see your parent figure, your carer, being sad, and this teaches you how to deal with sadness. And now I know for a fact that there have been times in my life when my mother has been incredibly unhappy, but she's not very good at dealing with unhappiness either, because she was never really taught either. This could very easily turn into a rant about the 7 generations thing and the Holocaust and some other things, but we're not going there. So we'll just say that we're all a little bit bad at dealing with sadness because none of us have actually been taught how. None of the women in my if you go up the side of women in my family, none of us know how to deal with sadness. But the point here is that it's a thing that so many people take for granted. And I've spent a lot of my time being unhappy. And I'm going to use unhappy and sad as different adjectives here because they do actually mean different things. Unhappy as in not happy. I've spent a lot of my life being unhappy. Um, and I've never really learned how to deal with it, and I've never really learned how to deal with grief either. My grandmother, my mother's mum, died when I was 14. And I bring this up because at 14 you are old enough to, what's the word? To watch how your parents deal with grief properly. You are old enough to understand what is going on. I never saw my mother grieve. I know that she did. And I know that a few years later when my grandfather died, she grieved then. At the time of recording, my mother has now lost both her parents, which is huge. And I know that she grieved. But I never saw her do it. And I never. The only reason I know that she has is because she said the morning Kaddish for my grandfather for 11 months, which is a traditional thing. She lights a memorial candle every year for both of them. And within the last few months, this is the first time I've ever seen her like this, by the way. She actually opened up a little bit and told me that she misses her mum, and we all miss her. She was, yeah. It's been 6 years and I still miss my grandmother. But I don't know how to explain it really. My mother was so busy with her business and with dealing with probate for two people at that point in time, my grandmother and also my great great uncle. Why didn't you just send it to a solicitor like everyone else? Well, my mum decided she was going to do it herself because she can. So I don't think she had time to grieve. And I would like to remind you, if I've never mentioned it before, I can't remember. I'm the eldest of three. I'm 2 years older than my sister and 4 years older than my brother. My brother is autistic. Asperger's, very typical male Asperger's. I'm Asperger's as well, and my sister probably is too, but honestly is too busy and has chronic fatigue anyway, so there's no point in her getting diagnosed. There's a whole thing about getting diagnosed, just leave that. So I don't know. It just doesn't seem fair. I'm angry that I'm angry at a lot of things. But mostly at the moment, I'm angry that I didn't get what seemed to be a very normal thing for every other kid. Do you guys want to know how I found out that we as a group, as a family, found out that I have an intolerance to soya? Because I feel like that illustrates my point. We had to have school lunches for a year when I was in year 2. because my mother was very, very busy with a lot of other things. My father had left her like 2 years before. The heating was only kind of working at that point. There's a lot going on at this point for my mum. So she was like, school lunches, I don't care. I was on school lunches for a year. The people, what's it called? The long and the short of it is, I don't remember anything from that year because all of the food had soya in it. We didn't know that I had a soya intolerance at that point, but we did know about the milk, and they've been told time and time again, yes, there's no milk in anything, so they're like, okay, not milk. Nobody noticed, or rather, no one noticed and had the time to deal with the fact that I was spaced out all the time for like a year. I remember like 2 bits of that year. Like, I would have been like 7, or I would have been 7. Most people can remember like a fair chunk of their 7. I remember nothing, or like maybe 2 memories, if that. How much of this? I don't really remember anything. I don't remember all that much up to the age of like 11 or 12. How much of that is my memory being bad? How much of that is suppression? And how much of that is me eating things I really shouldn't have been eating? We don't know. We just don't know. But the long and the short of it is, I don't know how to deal with not being... I don't really know how to deal with being sad. I've never been taught how to process it properly, so I've kind of had to teach myself. And that is bad. It's not good. It's just not good. And I am not happy. And I'm not content. And I am unhappy, decidedly unhappy, and I would say sad as well. Like, I know how to deal with depression, that's fine. I've dealt with, depression for so many years now that I basically know what to do with myself. As hard as that is sometimes, but just normal being sad isn't something I'm good at. And it isn't something I even know how to deal with, and I would really, really like to know how to deal with it.